If you were on a remote island over the weekend and were wondering if the Arizona Cardinals had signed any free agents, have no fear. They haven't. Does it worry my co-host yet? Also, there's still a list of free agents the Arizona Cardinals could sign and save face here. Plus, it's a Mock Draft Monday brought to you by Drake London, Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Here we go.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy, Bo Brack on a Monday edition. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Follow him at Bo Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards on Twitter. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, comment. We're here for the interaction. We love it every day. Thank you for everyone who is on the ride with us. If you were doing a sleep study for the last 72 hours and you were unable to look at a phone or a television, the Arizona Cardinals roster is exactly the same as it was before you got hooked up to that contraption and they blissfully put you to sleep. We're in a situation now where I'm starting to wonder how much you need to worry if I'm overstepping. I'm texting my friends like, am I going off the deep end here thinking this is too long? We're a week into free agency, the legal tampering and then 5 days of free agency. Is it too much to realize that the Cardinals are standing still and in turn falling behind? Bo seems to be the more level-headed one on this podcast. Bo, are you getting worried yet? Because if so, I may have to go into some sort of shelter here.
No, I think at this point, even if you're glued to the TV watching March Madness or you're gearing up for tonight's NHL trade deadline or whatever it may be, you can still get out there like you're a fantasy football GM and pick somebody off the waiver wire. Just click it. Just click on, add player at this point. The Arizona Cardinals, I don't know why they're idle. They refuse to really make any move outside of adding Jeff Gladney, a former first-round pick, to their roster, which I think is a sneaky, move that could reward the team down the line. But look, they still have glaring holes, and they are being, to a fault, patient as far as waiting for the edge or the cornerback or the wide receiver market, especially the wide receiver market is pretty barren at this point to materialize. Steve Keim and crew, they have to get after it. I can't imagine that they're going to be dormant for much longer.
Yeah, and we said that on Thursday of last week.
Yeah. Said it on Tuesday.
Yeah, the one that kind of hurt a little bit, and I know the Cardinals, that the Rams would not trade Robert Woods to the Cardinals for a 6th-round pick. I know that. Okay, I tweeted that out. I'm fully aware that they would not have traded him in division. That wasn't the point of the tweet. Them upgrading a wide receiver to Allen Robinson, I do think it's an upgrade. Robert Woods is a very, very undervalued receiver in the NFL. He's very underrated. I am one of the first ones to say that. And I think for what they're doing now, I think Cooper Kupp can do what Robert Woods does on top of what Cooper Kupp does. And Allen Robinson as a secondary piece or maybe tertiary piece, if they bring OBJ back, after tearing an ACL Robert Woods, I feel like it was time, and it makes sense to have too many cooks in the kitchen to move on from Robert Woods. I think that at least they stood still. But what they're doing is they won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. They extended their quarterback. They signed one of the more coveted wide receiver free agents. Like, they're doing things. That the Cardinals are standing pat makes it look like Steve Keim is just cool with his extension and cool with his team not competing. And I don't think that that's the case, okay? And also, Steve Keim's most brash moves were when his ass was on the hot seat. And now that he's going to be in the ivory tower for a handful of years after this season, you can't help but think that or question the correlation between those two things.
I don't think that he is, if it's a slow offseason and they completely just fall on their face in 2022, I know that he's on an extension. I think he would be shown, he would hopefully be shown the door. Like, I don't think his seat is the heat is completely off of it. But I think what people really need to do is need to separate what the Rams are doing, what other people are doing, or other teams are doing outside the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals do need to make a move. Like that's no doubt about it. But when you look at what the Rams have done, like, they lost their starting left tackle. He retired. Their second best pass rusher, Von Miller, signed the most lucrative deal of the offseason. He plays for the Buffalo Bills, another contender. And then they bring in Robert, or they send Robert Woods packing, who I thought, I think he's better than Allen Robinson. I know he's, as far as a teammate, as far as, there's no reports about Robert Woods quitting on his team, and he hasn't had 2 down seasons despite the quarterback play. I think it's a risk for the Rams, but sure, there's going to be high reward if it's another reclamation project like OBJ. I'm not convinced that the Rams are better today than they were after they won the title in the NFL in 2022. But the Arizona Cardinals, look, they have to make a move. They have to. And I know, and here's something that everybody knows, but you have to be reminded. Steve Keim, Michael Bidwell, they don't care what you have to say. They haven't changed the uniforms. They didn't but also let's keep this in mind. And this is playing a little bit of a devil's advocate, is your view of where their needs aren't necessarily where they view it. Like, remember the cornerback room, which out of the gates was decent. Like, when Robert Alford was healthy and JJ Watt was healthy in the front seven, this defense was like, the cornerback room looked like something that we were panicking last offseason about, that actually turned out to be a decent group until injuries reared their ugly head. This team, this organization views things a lot differently than the outsiders' perspectives do. But it still doesn't mean that, they need to go out there. Like, there's still a ton of open roster spots and voids up and down this roster. Cliff Kingsbury even said at the combine that they need to address the cornerback. And Jeff Gladney's like, I understand the upside there, but that's not enough. Like, you need to add a veteran guy. Like, I like that they have Byron Murphy at his age and Marco Wilson in Jeff Gladney, but they need a vet guy back. I don't know if that's returning Robert Alford, and that's got a red flag on it because of his injury history. And, they need to add another veteran guy. They just do. And they need to add an edge, and they need to add a wide receiver before the draft, like either a slot guy or they need an outside guy. They have tremendous voids that they haven't addressed. And I don't understand why they're waiting. And then also we haven't even started the conversation of all the guaranteed dollars and all the moves that are going as far as the quarterbacks go. The Arizona Cardinals are being put even more in a tougher spot with them quarterback and Kyler Murray, and how much he's going to command come extension time.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this over the weekend, and I'm going to kind of formulate something that we can talk about at a later date. But how many players of the 22 starters do opposing coordinators and head coaches have to game plan for on the Cardinals roster right now? 5? Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, James Conner, Rodney Hudson, Budda Baker. Honestly, game plan for Zach Ertz. 6.
Marcus
and
Golden,
that may be low.
Sack guy. I mean, if you don't game plan for Marcus Golden, the junkyard dog, he'll
right. But really,
Sunday.
So he's a sec. Okay, but really blue chip guys.
JJ Watt, yeah.
JJ Watt again.
I think they have more than, and that's what they're going to rely on. It's another year where they're going to rely on their stars, and they need their stars to play like that. And that's when we talk about, that's thin ice, especially in a league where injuries they happen to everybody, and they're inevitable. And the Arizona Cardinals, I just feel like, it's awesome that DeAndre Hopkins, you have big plans for him, and you have the expectation that he continues to play like a top 3 wide receiver in this league. But you saw what it looked like without him. You have to have those contingency plans. Otherwise, you're just foolish. You're foolish. You can't just run through the NFL season without sustaining significant injuries. And the Arizona Cardinals just aren't prepared for it. But as far as their stars and as far as their position groups, they do have, starting caliber to star quality players at a bunch of different levels in this offense and defense. but they don't have like complementary pieces yet. They need to find those in order to kind of take advantage of having that star power and that caliber of player on their team.
Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow him and Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. There are still free agents out there that the Cardinals could give money to come have them come play football for them. We're going to talk about that list. Bo put out a list on Twitter a couple of days ago. It's dwindled a little bit since then. We're going to run down the remaining players. And as Bo Brack, for the 38th mock draft in a row, I'm going to take Drake London with the first round pick for the Arizona Cardinals at 23 overall. We'll talk about in the final segment. First, Built Bar. Built Bar. Okay, so there's a couple things. If you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you know that we love Built Bar, and not just because we are given live reads to say we truly enjoy this product. Okay, New Year's resolutions probably over. Okay, but in this year, you can kind of stick to them a little bit longer with Built Bar. Okay, you don't have to go to the candy bar. All right, you can go to a Built Bar. They're covered in chocolate. All right. They don't have the hundreds of calories that candy bars do. They have around 130. They don't have the 30 grams of sugar that candy bars do. They have like 4 grams of sugar. They have 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. It's everything you need. And they've got these puffs things now that are protein-infused marshmallow that is covered in chocolate, and it's good for you. True story. They're fluffy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, so you can move that candy bar out of the cabinet and replace it with Built Bars. And again, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Low calorie, high protein. That's what you need. Okay. High fiber, low carb. That's what you need. Flavors are endless. Mint brownie, coconut almond. New for this month, white chocolate, cookies and cream. 17 grams of protein for something that tastes that good. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Second segment, Locked on Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day. Make sure you're following Locked on NFL, the Locked on experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. Bo's got his rolling out today. Mine on Thursday with Tyler Rowland from Locked on Titans. Thursdays have never been more fun with Tyler and myself. So it's been a barren wasteland of signings by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, sure, give Steve Keim credit, I guess, for retaining Zach Ertz and James Conner. Max Williams to a 1-year deal, Dennis Gardeck, Michael Dogby. Like, okay. It's unacceptable what's happened so far. It's unacceptable. I know he doesn't care what I think. Maybe he should care what people think because the hashtag DOI is in full effect. The definition of insanity. And this isn't even in the wheelhouse of normalcy for their insanity. This is taking it to another echelon outside of the ether of the definition of insanity because they've legitimately sat their keister on their hand and say, you know what? Nothing's been a good fit yet. Or what, like, and I want to revisit this really quickly. We're going to move to the list. Do you think the players don't want to play for the Arizona Cardinals after what they saw towards the second half of last season? It's not rhetorical.
I don't think that's a factor.
You don't?
I really don't.
And do you think Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury are a factor?
No.
Okay.
I really don't. I mean, from everything we've heard, people like playing for Cliff Kingsbury. They really do. I mean, every player that's been in that locker room, like there hasn't been anybody that's left this organization that has said anything negative about K2. We've seen a lot of people say some negative things about Steve Keim, but I don't think that it transcends, the organization and guys that have played for this organization and bleeds out into guys who are going, if the money's even, I think the Arizona Cardinals still kind of have a leg up over, let's say, half of the organizations in this league. I mean, if you're looking at them versus LA, I mean, that's tough because people are, there's the allure of Hollywood and, playing in one of the biggest markets and getting to play for Sean McVay and all the success that they've had during his tenure. But I don't think that there's a negative stigma surrounding this organization as much as people want to buy into it. But I think it's just inactivity from the front office. What I would be intrigued by or really fascinated by is like, have they swung and missed? There was Chandler Jones saying that he told Jordan Schultz that, there's a couple teams in play and including staying, and he really thought about playing for the Arizona Cardinals. But he was, he liked the plan in place. He liked the $17.5 million, I think, the most, because he chose to go play for the fourth best team with the fourth best quarterback in that division. So even though he says he wants to win multiple rings, which is crazy, but I think that they're bridesmaids right now, and that's not good. Like, you have to improve this roster. You do, because what Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury especially have been able to hang their hat on is yearly improvement. And now it's just like, there's only two places to go. And I don't think it's the way that this team is built that there's going to be like some middle, like they're not going to finish 11-6 again, right? Do you get the sense of that?
No, I mean, I don't. What I don't understand, and I promise we'll get to the list here in a minute. What I don't understand is when you're that close and you saw what the team was capable of. And I know that they've lost Chase Edmonds. I know they lost Christian Kirk, obviously a far more lucrative deal than the Cardinals would have paid in. Chase Edmonds was around there. I mean, he didn't get that much money, but they decided to move on. I'm sure they're going to draft a running back. When you got that close with this offense, Vance Joseph running the defense, everything seemed to work in synchronicity through 12 weeks. It's like, why wouldn't you try to maintain that fire instead of watching it go out and starting over? Like, right. Again, this isn't directly re-signing Christian Kirk, re-signing Chase Edmonds, but you saw what this team at full capacity was capable of. They were playing very good teams, winning games convincingly on the road against playoff teams, namely against, AFC teams. And then, they beat the Rams at SoFi. Mm-hmm. Like, why is it just, you know what? Let's take a beat and we'll dive deep into, the real crux of the issue, and let's figure out the players are going to be Shut up. Go sign players. Like, everybody, and let's hit the list right now. Bo brought this up on his Twitter at Bo Brack, and there's one or two players that are off the list since he tweeted it out. But these are, like, Casey Hayward was one, went to Atlanta. It would have been a great fit for this defense.
He wasn't on there, but he was on my list, but
right early on.
And the key word here is notable. I'm not looking for like the perfect fit. I'm not talking about, if they could get guys who are in their 20s and guys that could develop even more so, find their prime years for the Arizona Cardinals. I think that there are a few of those guys left, but these are notable guys. Most of them are over 30. Most of them kind of fit the criteria that Steve Keim has gone by the last two off seasons. Bringing back Calais Campbell, Akeem Hicks would be a good guy to add to this defense. Stephon Gilmore, who we've pounded the table for. Lyle Collins, who's a versatile offensive lineman. He's played some tackle. He can play some guard. Melvin Ingram at 32 could be an edge off guy for the Arizona Cardinals. OBJ, Jarvis Landry, and then Bobby Wagner. You can add Julio Jones to that list. You look at the corners backs out there. Like, I think we can take Patrick Peterson off of there, but like Chris Harris or Bryce Callahan, who play more of an inside corner position for this team. Jason Verrett, who I know had another knee injury last year, but he bounced back with the Niners in 2020. I think that I don't like Steven Nelson, by the way. I think he stinks. But there are guys out. Joe Hayden you can add to this defensive secondary, and people like your secondary becomes significantly better because he's a plug and play guy. He can start right away. He can play opposite Byron Murphy. And then these two projects that you have in Marco Wilson and Jeff Gladney can develop at a far more comfortable pace than just throwing them to the fire.
Yeah, far more natural pace. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Marco Wilson played fine, but it's like, if you're relying on a fourth-round pick and Steve Keim was like, you know what, I traded up for him. Let's play him. I'm a genius. Like, this isn't a trend anymore. This is law. This is Steve Keim, I'm smarter than everybody law. And when you see the futility of signings so far, signings from other teams, and Jeff Gladney was cut. Okay, he wasn't a free agent. His extension didn't run out. The Cardinals haven't signed a free agent yet. They have not signed a free agent yet. And I know that's kind of splitting hairs, but when you have some sort of urgency, it shows. And the Cardinals don't. And Bo listed a bunch of names. Sign anybody that's played meaningful snaps in the secondary from another squad. It'll be an upgrade from what the Cardinals have now.
But here's the one thing that can, and I'm not trying to just, really spit shine this thing up, because it's way more.
I appreciate the effort.
It's just way more fun when your team's active. It just is.
Yeah,
and this is like, it would be unacceptable if they move forward without really making any significant moves. But the Tennessee Titans are the example that you can kind of breathe a sigh of relief, because there was a massive void at tight end. And the Titans did not aggressively pursue any of the top guys. A lot of them were franchise tagged. Some of the guys were, obviously the Cardinals retained Zach Ertz, but they were patient. Austin Hooper got released. He gets gobbled up by the Titans. They pull off a trade 6th-round pick for Allen Robinson. Just in a 2-day span, probably less than 48 hours. Is it John Robinson, the GM there, was able to completely turn around, the Titans offseason just with a couple savvy moves. And Steve Keim, I think, is in the same exact position. Like, if the Arizona Cardinals can bring in bodies at edge and corner or wide receiver, and not like, I don't think anybody's out there that you would say, hey, I'm completely content with those positions going, but you would put them in a much better position where this fan base would be relieved going into the draft, and they wouldn't have just like a full-on black hole void at those positions that they need to fill with first-year players, because we know Steve Keim's draft history.
Let's do something. Yeah. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Follow him at Bo Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Thank you to everybody who makes Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Like, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We love doing this. And there wouldn't be an us if there weren't a you. That sounds like a prom speech or something. Mock Draft Monday. Is Bo going to be the bane of my existence continuously by taking wide receiver Drake London from USC in the first round? Again. We'll talk about it. It's that time of year again. Listen, full disclosure, I am watching March Madness games as Bo talks because I never listen to him, but it's on TV. College basketball, March Madness, from all the latest odds, contests, and player props. BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball, man. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. It's a Mock Draft Monday. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen of the day. If you're an NHL fan, NHL trade deadline's on its way, and Locked On has over 20 NHL shows going live for you at 3 p.m. Eastern today. Find your favorite NHL teams, Locked On Podcast on YouTube. Locked On Coyotes, baby. Check it out. Mock Draft Monday. Bo and I go over to our, go over to the TDN and do our little mocky draft here. Bo and I have remained pretty consistent with the first round path and where the Arizona Cardinals should go. I think even more so at this point, where the Arizona Cardinals are and have done in free agency. They need to eat their vegetables. I'm going to let Bo go first because this is the most anticlimactic first pick, I would assume. Bo, did you take wide receiver Drake London out of USC?
I did. Give me the 6'4", 220-pound, just physical specimen, as Kyler Murray calls him, demon, going out there, and he's going to play that Z wide receiver spot for the Arizona Cardinals that we saw AJ Green play okay last season. Give me Drake London. Gimme. And he just completely bolsters his Arizona Cardinals passing attack. Put him with DeAndre Hopkins. You've got James Conner back. Give me Drake London. And I would be shocked if he's on the board at 23 for the Arizona Cardinals, because the team that just traded Devontae Adams is picking in front of them, and they're going to get probably a pretty good wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers just to pick before the Cardinals are on the board. But give me Drake London.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess I can't fault him too much because I'm keeping my same pick. It's going to be Zion Johnson out of Iowa, interior offensive lineman. The reason why now more than ever the Cardinals need to bolster the offensive line is because the offensive firepower, as of right now, isn't close to where it was last year. So what Kyler Murray needs more than anything is time. And Kyler's going to get better. He's going to get better with his progressions. It's his third year. This is something that it's his fourth year. What am I talking about? When Kyler really is going to, if Kyler's really going to hit that peak this year, he's going to need protection. And Zion Johnson is an absolute monster. And he's going to bolster the offensive line with DJ Humphries, Kelvin Beachum, and Rodney Hudson. And it's going to be a huge move for the Cardinals at 23 overall, where they finally decide to eat their vegetables. I'm throwing up because I know this isn't going to happen, and he's going to take a kicker or something in the first round. But a guy can dream. You know what I mean? Bo, who is your second round pick?
Filling another need here, at least adding to now a stable of young cornerbacks. Roger McCreary, which is interesting. It's like boy. We talk about, he played awesome against Alabama. He played incredibly well in that game. And I think if he's there in the second round at 55th overall, the Arizona Cardinals will have a solid, young cornerback group. The only problem is young quarterbacks become toast far more often than not. They need a veteran presence in that room. But I think McCreary, you can't pass up on that caliber of a prospect coming out of Auburn. I want to throw this out here, and we'll probably talk about this later this week. We talk about Kyler Murray's extension, but now this offseason, the Cardinals need to seriously extend. They can't let Jalen Thompson and Byron Murphy go the way of Christian Kirk and Chase Edmonds. 4 years and done and off to a big contract. They have to lock those guys up.
Yeah, they do. And
don't even talk the Kyler Murray. I don't care how, what Eric Burkhart, Kyler Murray's agent, saying on Twitter. Hopefully you've got a prioritized list. Those guys should probably be ahead of them, because Kyler Murray, you've got him 2 more years if you under contract.
Yeah. And I think that the back end is set with Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. Jalen Thompson should definitely get another contract by the Cardinals. They may have to overpay a little bit, because even though he's one of the more unknown names of impact makers in the NFL, he will become known if he has another year this year like he did last year. It's going to be, and Byron Murphy as a CB2, they've got pieces here, but they need more adults in the room, and maybe not 35-year-olds. Adult could mean 27, okay? Adult could mean 28. You don't have to wait until a guy's over 30 to sign him, Steve Keim. This roster, we know, is still a raw, just ball of dough. And they need to figure out what that ball of dough is going to turn into. Now, my second pick, Kenneth Walker, running back, Michigan State, no-brainer if he's there in the second round. I feel like if you have a guy that can be the complement to James Conner, because remember, James Conner was the offense last year. He was the focal point of the offense, especially after DeAndre Hopkins went out. The offense ran through James Conner. If you can have a second guy to where they could, have 60-40 touch share, regardless of if Kenneth Walker comes in and is an impact maker right away, and have James Conner be 40% of the touches, I have no problem with paying him as much as they paid him if he can score, 15 touchdowns next year. There are two guys that have to be accounted for. Kyler Murray is great with the running backs. I feel like it's a no-brainer with a running back in the second round. And I feel like you'd agree with me there, because if Kenneth Walker's there, more times than not, you're going to take him if your favorite corner's not there for the Cardinals to take.
Yeah, and that's the money round. If you look at the top 10 in rushing yards each and every season, it's just littered with second-round picks. That's just the money round to do it. People don't want to do it with the first-round money. You're just overpaying at that position. Second round, it seems to be where you can that's the sweet spot. Nick Benito from Oklahoma, pass rusher, edge, 6'4", 250-ish. I think that he'd be, that's where I'm going need.
Bo, who did I take in the third round?
Did you take him? Oh my God.
Yeah, and you know what? I looked around, and they're in the third round, at least for the for the mock drafts, there was a slew of tight ends available. A slew of tight ends that will make an impact immediately. Big schools, and I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? With how tight ends are being moved around this year, nowadays, is it something to think about where if a guy is 6'5", and he's a Zach Ertz-y type. Like, and you have a Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert kind of situation where you can really line him up anywhere. And the price point's going to be a lot less for a tight end. Like, would you think about taking a tight end in the first handful of rounds?
As we sit here and we plead, we're like tears streaming from our face. We're on our knees and we're looking up to Steve Keim and those massive jowls, and we're saying, "Hey, please make a move. Please just add anybody on this roster." When I look at this roster, the tight end is probably the position group I'm most comfortable with. So probably not. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and you have to be active. I think next off season is when you really look at a young tight end. I like Max Williams and Zach Ertz. I know the injury history and stuff is there, but it's you've got the blocking from Max and you've got the playmaking from Ertz. I'd probably pass on that. I think that there's just the edge in the corner in the wide receiver spot. It's just so necessary to start to fix those position groups.
No, agreed. I thought it would be fun to bring out. So yeah, I mean, none of that matters. Like, if there is a strain on need going into the draft and you're thinking drafting a player and having them be ready to play immediately and you have to have them play immediately, that is a recipe for failure. Like, you're not going to have, like, Justin Jefferson, it took a while. You can't compare Justin Jefferson. Look at everybody else that failed.
I don't think you can say, like, the wide receivers are coming to play in their first year in the NFL.
For every Justin Jefferson, there's a Denzel Mims, and there's a T. Higgins who didn't really show until his second year. I mean, he looked midway through his rookie year.
He was giving up routes to AJ Green. Yeah. He had another rookie He had a rookie quarterback in there, in Joe Burrow. I mean, I think T. Higgins, he came alive in the second half of that season. Cliff Kingsbury likes to get him incorporated. He's the anti-Vance Joseph. He likes to incorporate these young guys. I just think that there are guys that are going to be ready to play. The last 3 drafts have shown that. I'm more comfortable with that than you are.
Fair enough. It's about par for the course. Steve Keim, go sign somebody. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. We'll talk to you tomorrow.